Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we will be talking about the 2024 race, which is now just 7 days away. Incredible to think about. And Kamala Harris, in this final stretch of the campaign, has really been able to skyrocket in terms of how close this race is in these final days. Kamala Harris, for example, I don't like to look at polling, as you all know. I think because of how close this race is, as shown in every single poll, it's very, it's not useful at all to look at polls where Harris is ahead by point 0.5 or Trump is ahead by point 0.5. It really doesn't matter because polls won't be that spot on. But just to get a sense for you all of how Kamala Harris has been able to, flip this election around, right? Turn the tide of this election, we can look at polling. Because you can see in these final days, Kamala Harris has really been able to, this is, for example, the Real Clear Politics average in Michigan, the average of polls, where Harris just today has taken the lead after a batch of positive polls for her, including a +5 poll from this pollster. So as you can see, Trump just this was the 20th. This was 9 days ago. At one point had a lead of 1.2%. Today, Harris has flipped that around, gained 1.5%. She's now at plus 0.3. So when you look at these margins, Kamala Harris has really been able to, there's just one example, but it is clear in the polling that she has been able to solidify the Democratic base one and get a lot of, weary voters, right, in more conservative-minded Republicans or independents, whatever it may be, on her side. Basically what Biden was able to do in 2020. Because you can see this is a new poll. This is CNN's final poll, sponsored by CNN, conducted by SSRS, a pretty accurate pollster, very reputable pollster, as you can see, 2.8% out of, or not 2.8%, 2.8 out of 3 rating on 538. And you can see that their new poll has Harris ahead in Arizona. Arizona, that's insane. Arizona is supposed to be Trump's seemingly best state, right? Of the 7 core battlegrounds, you can see when you look at the little chart graph that they give us here, it goes by how close the states are. So the closest states, Nevada, Wisconsin, etc., they're more towards the left, close to where you scroll. Well, as you go farther out, you see the last of the 7 core battlegrounds is Arizona. Trump is ahead in Arizona by 2% right now in the average of polls, and clearly that is breaking. Clearly that is slipping because Harris is ahead in CNN's new poll by 1%. When look at that, this is key. In their last poll a month ago, September 29th, Trump was ahead not by 1, not by 2, by 5 percentage points. In a month, Harris has gained 6 percentage points in Arizona in the CNN poll. That is unbelievable. And it really ties into the Senate race here, right? Gallego is going to win by at least 8%. And this is the only, more accurate poll that I've seen where Gallego is ahead by 8% and Harris is ahead by 1. That's reasonable for Gallego to outpace Harris by 7 points. But some polls have Harris down by 3 while Gallego wins by 8. That 11-point difference, because of how partisan voters are, that's not possible. So those margins, whether it be Gallegos narrows down or Harris gains, those margins are impossible to exist. This is more like it. This is a poll that honestly I trust. And as you all know, I do have Arizona tilt blue in my forecast right now. I know it's a hot take, and I think that she wins it by the narrowest of margins. I put 0.1% just to have some there. Probably more some like a 0.2 or 0.3, considering the 0.3% margin in 2020. But you get the idea. She is probably ahead in the state of Arizona. Not to mention, you've got this new Survey USA poll, which is an A+ rated pollster. That's key. Survey USA is an A+ rated pollster that shows, get this, Harris in the lead in North Carolina. 49 to 46 was their last poll, but this was in September. This 3-point lead, this was right after the debate in early September. Absolutely useless to talk about the election now. And you can see, despite, Trump supposedly surging and Trump supposedly having this huge lead in the election and Polymarket showing Trump with a 60% chance to win, despite all that, Harris is still ahead in North Carolina, a state which voted red in 2020, I'll mind you. Out of the 7 core battlegrounds, North Carolina was the only one to vote Republican. Trump won it by 1.3%. So to see Harris leading in this red state, wrong tab again, To see Harris leading in this red state, it's by 0.2%. It's marginal, but it's still a lead in an A plus rated pollster. That is absolutely shocking. And not to mention, the undecided voters are critical. When you've got 0.2% margins in these polls, as we are seeing across the battleground states, it matters so much where these, large group of 4.5% of voters land. I think, as I've explained in multiple videos now, I think based off of everything, they are going to break heavily for Harris. I think come the election, I believe that if they were voting for Donald Trump, he really has solidified his base, and this was the case in 2022. He really has solidified his base, and anyone who's undecided now is probably too sour on Trump. He's too far gone to vote for him. I feel like if you are going to vote for him, then you would already be a supporter of his. Your mind made up, because the fact of the matter is, most Trump voters are voting for him because whatever they viewed the country better under his 4 years. I think that anyone undecided has already decided, that I'm sorry, that didn't make any sense. I think that all Trump supporters have already decided that the country was better than. Ultimately, I think that undecideds will break heavily for Harris. That is just my opinion. So, whatever. If it's relevant, I don't know, but still, Harris does have a 0.2% lead in North Carolina. So, I brought up 3 examples there. There are much more. So, tens and tens of polls are released every day. I mean, today we just had about like 15 polls, probably, maybe more like 20 probably, just released all today. It's so much to comprehend, but these are just the big ones. Harris takes the lead in Arizona. She takes the lead in North Carolina. She takes the lead in Michigan. That's incredible. And again, as I've said in my videos, um, before, it's always the most accurate pollsters. As you can see here, the Survey USA, it's always the most accurate pollsters that Kamala Harris is performing the best in, and that's just a fact. You've got Survey USA, A plus rated pollster, has been one of the most bullish on Harris's chances. You've got Tip, they do a tracking poll. It does fluctuate, but some of Harris's best leads in these recent weeks have come from the daily Tip polls, which is another A plus rated pollster. You've got CNN. I think that CNN or SSRS, I should say, very reputable pollster. I'm not showing on their exact rating, but I think it's B plus or A minus, right in that top range. The best of the polls are the ones showing Harris ahead. And when you look at some whatever, like you've got Atlas Intel, which is supposedly a good pollster, just look at the crosstabs in their poll. This isn't it, but when you look at the crosstabs, they make 0 sense. I mean, just look at their state polls. For example, they released a new batch of swing state polls today. Harris led in one of the battleground states. Sure, that's possible for a poll. But guess what state it was? North Carolina, the one that's the least likely to go to her. They make 0 sense. You shouldn't trust polls like that when they simply don't make sense in the crosstabs and the state polls. But in the very best polls, these are the ones where Harris is leading. So this is extremely important. And we'll see what the best of the best pollster is, and that actually comes from the state of Iowa. You all know I love my favorite poll is Selzer and Company. They get the result spot on every time. The last time they conducted a poll was right after the debate, and it showed a shockingly good performance by Harris. Iowa was only Trump +4 when he won it by 8 in 2020. So in other words, Harris was gaining 4% on Trump from 2020. Now, their final poll will be released the Sunday before Election Day. So we've got, 5 days until the Selzer poll is released. That is when I will make my final prediction. And again, the most accurate pollster, literally the most accurate pollster in the nation, Selzer, was literally probably the best poll Harris has gotten throughout this race. I mean, she was that would be the equivalent to a +8 win in the national vote if the country is shifting 4% towards the left like Iowa was in Selzer's poll. So, literally, seriously, literally, the best poll that Harris has got through this entire race came from an A plus rated pollster. Literally the best pollster in the nation. They get it spot on every time, caucus after caucus, general election after general election. So, my prediction hinges most, if we're looking at polls specifically, it hinges most on the best polls. I'm not going to look at Atlas Intel when they have North Carolina blue, but Michigan red. It makes zero sense. So when Harris is getting polls like this, it really does help her. That's why I'm so bullish on her chances in my forecast. I really think that she will win the election. Not to mention that polls are off. that polls are always off, and I think that in this instance, Harris will be underestimated. I believe that there is a hidden Kamala Harris vote that will turn out on election day. These voters who typically vote Republican, maybe registered independent, but almost always vote Republican, never even really considered voting Democrat until now because they cannot stomach the thought of Donald Trump serving another 4 years as president. That is the reality. I don't think that there is now any hidden Trump voters. Right, in 2016 there were, because people were embarrassed to say that they would vote for him in polling. But now there's just not that same effect with Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. I should say, it's not really her causing that. It's more so Donald Trump, the deterioration really of Donald Trump and his campaign. This is now post January 6th, post him being a convicted felon, post Dobbs, post the overturning of Roe, and there simply won't be, this hidden Trump vote as there was in 2016. He has been leading most of this race. No one is embarrassed now to say that they are voting for Donald Trump. I think we can all agree on that. So if there's any, error in polls, it would help Kamala Harris. So this is my prediction right now, but I will say Georgia is literally so close to being on the verge of voting blue. So don't be surprised if you see Georgia blue in my final prediction, while Wisconsin is red. I think that Wisconsin really could go red, but we'll see. Georgia could change come tomorrow. So current prediction 287 to 251. This is my forecast with exact margins if you want to take a look. But again, thank you all for watching. Well, not again, but for the first time, thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe down below. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers before election day. So maybe we could get there, maybe not. We'll see. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all later.